So we went and spoke to these 30 leaders, top executives from listed companies, and we kept the conversation anonymous because that's the only way you can get into something that they're challenged with. What was the main point you took out of our conversation?
Well, I think the first point I'll highlight is, and in every interview, this was the first 15 minutes, and that was talking about crisis load. So for the past 3.5 years, ever since COVID came, one crisis has been taking over the next one. So geopolitical tensions, inflation, supply chain challenges, and so forth. And that really puts leaders in a special position where they all the time are on the spot and need to make decisions collectively together with their leadership teams. So that's definitely one part of the shift and something that's changed.
They all say we spend significantly more time in the board and in the executive committee, both time and energy. But interestingly enough, about the same time as COVID broke out, something else happened. And I think the most evident point of departure for that was at the World Economic Forum, where Edelman Trust Survey was published. And that's a survey where they go out and they ask the people on the planet, who do you expect to solve the worthwhile problems of humanity? And for the first time ever, they didn't point to policymakers or NGOs. They pointed to leaders and organizations as the entity that has the capabilities, but also the agency to fix these societal problems. And specifically, they expect CEOs to both speak up and take a lead in propelling society forward. And I think it's an interesting point because the implications of that is that suddenly societal problems have become business problems. And that just makes choice-making different as of now.
Yeah, and one thing I think really stood out in the interviews around that was also that the way people or the leaders experience that is that the stakeholder landscape is completely changed. So you're no longer answering just to shareholders, you're answering to a much larger community of stakeholders, the public, policymakers, and so forth. And you don't really choose those stakeholders yourself. They choose you. And if you don't have an opinion and if you don't cater for that, then it can really backfire on you.
Up until now, it has been more or less okay to say, I'm just running a business. I'm trying to outgrow competition and I'm trying to make more profit, so profitable growth. And suddenly the tectonic shift has meant that's not good enough. We are expected also to propel society forward.
And these issues are often a lot more value-based. They're have much more components of ethics and moral and so forth, which is also a bit of a new dimension that businesses need to navigate.
The implications is that the problems we're looking into are more complex, they hold more ambiguity, they even have paradoxical tensions, which means they're persistent. Even if we make a commitment and actions, the problem doesn't go away. It takes a few months, then the problem will look us in the eye again and say, have you done enough? Could you do more? So it's kind of annoying. It's persistent, and there is some permanent kind of discomfort in holding problems that has that feel.
That they don't go away. And I think an example that also came up several times was around, navigating a DEI agenda, so diversity, equity, and inclusion. So lots of companies start in one place. Maybe they start with gender, but then after they've been working on that for a while, new questions will arise. Well, what about neurodiversity? What about LGBT+? What about age? What about, international employees and so forth? So it's something that will keep returning to you.
So a shift that has three components. One is crisis load, one is societal problems have become business problems, and then lastly, there are paradoxical problems and loads of tension and complexity and ambiguity.